So today I wanted to talk about Mizuno and why within the football boot world there's certain enthusiasts out there like myself that are so passionate and impressed when it comes to Mizuno as a brand. And I thought it'd be a good time to talk about why there's so much love for Mizuno out there within certain, football boot communities. And if you're only used to things like your Nikes and your Adidas and Pumas, why a pair of Mizuno boots might be very, very interesting for you to try. So I just wanted to go around it, explain a little bit about the brand, their range, what they do, their philosophies, and how that compares and translates against everything else on the market. So where should we start? So I guess they're known for mainly their innovation in leather boots. So we're looking at something like this. So this is a Mizuno DNA, one of their more recent limited editions, which is combining a sole plate from their speed boot with the upper from their heritage boot, you could call it. But that aside, I just wanted to sort of bring up a couple things. So if we bring up things that I was back in the day wearing things like this, like a Adidas Adipure. And so this is the Adipure 1 and a really nice kangaroo leather boot, really low toe box, nice leather. And then things like this, the last of Tiempos, the Legend 9. So again, kangaroo leather, a really nice, soft, pliable upper. And if you have these two boots in hand, and then you manage to pick up something like this, like a wave cup, the leather on this is just so much nicer. Like it's more plush. It doesn't have this grainy feeling to it. It's treated in a different way where it gives that like shiny look to it. Like, and to give you an idea, this boot is like, I've had this boot for 5 years and it's probably been my most consistently worn boot out of everything in my collection. It's always in my bag. I'm always got it there as a backup boot. Played multiple games, training sessions, everything in these. And I don't treat this boot. I don't put any leather care on it. It comes pre-treated from Mizuno, and I just make sure I wash it. And the shine that this boot still has, like, it's just insane. And like how soft it is and plush, it's unmatched by the likes of an Adidas boot. So again, I bring the Adipure up because I think it's still one of the nicer leather uppers they did. And then if you look at the modern interpretation with like a Tiempo Legend 9, which for a lot of people is one of the best leather boots in terms of like modern technologies and, recent leather boots. But again, this boot compared to, again, like bring the DNA back up, not even close how much nicer this leather is. And it's the same thing as with any of the other leather boots. They all mold to your feet, they all become very comfortable and have a really nice plush feeling on them. But when you get one of these Mizuno boots, you understand just how nice they are. Like with these, you still have to break them in. Like they start soft and get softer, but these honestly feel like someone's already taken the time to break them in, and you don't get hot spots, you don't get blisters, and it's like having leather slippers on your feet. Not sloppy and unresponsive, but like comfortable wise. And part of that reason is, so there's two main things that you're going to be getting from Mizuno. Is what you'll hear a lot when you're talking about Mizuno is their made in Japan products. So what the made in Japan products are is, as the name would suggest, it's their factory in Japan where they were mainly focusing on sort of like the professional level products, so not the stuff that we usually buy on the shelf. So same with this. This Nike boot isn't typically what any of the Nike sponsored athletes will be wearing. They have custom lasses, they have nice leather, made in Montebelluna sort of things, whereas we just get the retail pair. So that was sort of that level of made in Japan. It was that extra quality of leather we were getting, the extra craftsmanship as well. So for those of you who don't know, so with these made in Japan products, they so a normal boot like this, so the last where they put like the foot shape into the boot and last and shape the football boot around the foot, essentially, the like wooden chock. That on a normal boot like the Tiempo is done for about 20 minutes. whereas for a made in Japan Mizuno boot, it's 24 hours. So the boot has time to sit, rest, shape around their mold to get the shape that they want, which is sort of why a lot of the times like these feel broken in before you get them, and then they only get better. So it's super impressive in terms of the build quality. Another thing I want to show you, so if I grab my wave cups, the build quality on these are insane. I can even show you on, so I've got another really cool boot here, the Wave Ignitus, which is sort of like the Total 90 of the day, with having all the rubber striking elements, but we'll get back to that. But in terms of build quality, it's insane. So you can see both of these boots have 3 rivets right at the top. The wave cup just there has a rivet right in that sort of instep area where we do see a lot of sole separation on a lot of boots. The Wave Ignitus has 2 studs there, 2 rivets there holding the sole plates together, and then around the entire boot. So essentially what they do is they glue the sole plate on, and then they get like someone's specifically employed to have a syringe and go around each little bit to make sure that not a little bit was missed or they didn't quite cover a little bit with glue. There's no run marks or anything like that to make sure they're essentially perfect when they arrive. And so out of all my Mizuno products, I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 made in Japan products, and I can't see like any defects on any of them at all. And then so another really cool thing about Mizuno is the way they do their development and the way they change between generations. So this is their Morelia Neo, and I believe the Morelia Neo was out back in like 2010. So I remember the original like F50 Addies eras. The Mizuno Morelia Neo 1 was a direct competitor back in 2010. So this overall look and design is about 15 years old, but they have updated the shape. They have updated the materials they make the sole plate out of. They've updated the way they strengthen and support the midfoot. They've updated the midfoot materials. It's still the same concept and look and boot to an extent, but they don't just change for the sake of change. Like you see what Tiempo did between, Legend 8 or 10 or the 6 up there. They're all completely different ideas. Like still a leather Tiempo other than the 10, but they change look, they change shape, they change elements, everything like that. Whereas what they've done with this, which is sort of like that Japanese ideology, is they have an idea and they just keep perfecting and just changing and tweaking. Then each time they have, a new material that they can use or a new idea, they incorporate it into the boot just to make it that a little bit better and a little bit better. And then if you have a look at like an original Neo compared to these fit better. They've got nicer materials. They're more lightweight. They're just insanely impressive that they're persistent. It's sort of like in terms of like cars, like Porsche and their 911. The 911 concept with having, rear wheel motor, rear wheel drive, and the shape and look of it has been around for, like 50 years now. And they just keep on tweaking and changing, but the overall design and design language and concept of having rear engine overhang, which makes no sense at all, but they've perfected it to a stage now where it's one of the best handling cars because they've spent so much time on one concept and perfecting it. And that's what we have here. It's a concept that they just keep on going and tweaking and adding and only changing for the sake of improvement, not changing just for the sake of change. So that's one of those super impressive things with their Mizuno product. And then the made in Japan stuff is just that top tier. So I do have the Alpha 1, and this is their made in Vietnam product. So as much as we think of, okay, the made in Japan product is the top, and this must be a takedown, so it's not going to be as good. And if we go from an elite Nike to a pro, you lose a lot of things and the quality goes down. And that isn't the case when it comes to Mizuno. So a Mizuno top-end product is essentially their elite. This is their top end product. It's just that they've offered this new level of made in Japan, which is crazy expensive, but anyway, we'll get to the pricing later. But essentially what this is up there with a Mercurial Vapor or F50 or, you know, the Puma Ultras. This is the competitor. It's not a takedown by any means. The synthetic's great, the build quality is great. It's very similar to what you get on the Made in Japan product. Really the only thing you're getting is a slight weight reduction. You had the Carvo insert in the forefoot and had some really minor tweaks to it. But if you had both in hand and you didn't really know, you know, you weren't an absolute boot nerd with materials and everything, you wouldn't tell. Honestly, if I had both of them in hand in the same colorway, I'd struggle to tell that that's similar. So even if, so we're gonna have to talk about it. So pricing. So, because what I was about to say is, even if these are almost double the price of the Made in Vietnam product, this isn't twice as good. So that's something that we have to cover when we're talking about Mizuno, unfortunately, is the pricing. So for most regions, so the US, Europe, and Australia, they are insanely expensive. So if you wanted to just start to get into their sort of elite top-end boot, these are around normal top-end price, around $360, $380, and that is a top-end boot, and it's fantastic. But if you want to take that step into a Made in Japan product, it's almost double. So here in Australia, you go from around $360 to $600 on a football boot. So for a lot of people, that's why Mizuno just isn't an obtainable brand, because for like myself, none of the boots you'll see around me are, you know, takedown boots. I'm interested in technologies, and I want to have whatever the brand can say, this is their peak, their best product they can put out right now without stripping anything away. That's what I want to try. I want to try their best. I don't want to try something that's been watered down or had elements taken out. So for anyone with a similar mindset who only want to have a Mizuno product if it's their best, and that means going to the Made in Japan stuff, it's very expensive. Like, you can buy this and only have spent like $80 more, like for 2 pairs of boots instead of 1. And you know, you can get a whole season or a half out of this and then buy another pair of boots and still possibly under 1 pair. But I guess that's another thing, because the durability on these are insane. So pricing is a big thing. I'm lucky to have some friends around the world where one of them does live in Japan and manages to source them at an insane price. So this is a Made in Japan Alpha 2, and he was able to get these for me for 250 Australian dollars. So less, significant less, $100 less than what an elite product would cost me in Australia. I'm able to get Made in Japan product from Japan. So pricing, I don't really understand why it's so cheap in Japan and then so incredibly expensive everywhere else. Like, I get it, you know, you want to hold sort of that prestige, you know, this isn't just a, you know, cheap boot. It's had all the best of the best materials put in. So it's a premium product, so they want a premium price. I understand that. But when they're selling the same premium product at the premium price, just at a different area of the world for half the cost, less than half the cost, it makes it quite hard to accept that as an excuse. So they are fantastic. Like I said, if you get them in hand, they are some of the best leather, the best build quality you're ever going to have in a football boot. They are fantastic, but I think for a lot of people, the price point takes them away. And I think for a lot of people too, Mizuno, so like if we come back to this Wave Ignitus, this was something that I would go buy a T90 or Predator over this boot back when I was a kid, back when these were out. But this was a better boot. Like, The rubber elements were more aggressive. The McClayton panel was an interesting element. You had carbon fiber in the insole. You had kangaroo leather uppers. It's like, it was an insane boot. But Mizuno just wasn't really a household name. And I think even now, unless you really like your boots, you see these and you don't really understand what they are. You just go, oh, that's not a Nike, that's not Adidas, it's not a Puma. And yeah, I think it's kind of a good and bad thing, because if you do see someone with Mizunos, you're like, they know football boots. They love their football boots. If they've gone and spent this sort of money on this sort of a product, yeah, they know their stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of go over what it is about Mizuno that makes them so special in terms of, as a quick recap, the build quality is almost unrivaled. Like, you can't even hold a candlestick. Like an Adidas boot, not even close. You can pick limited editions or whatever. The made in Japan stuff is just better. It's made better with nicer products, and the finish is fantastic. And then the other thing, like I mentioned, is the durability. Like, to bring up the Wave Cups again, these are 5 years old, and I've absolutely worn them to death, but they're not breaking. The only wear I have is a little bit of color of the leather disappearing. But other than that, these look fresh still. These almost look new. Like a little bit of discoloration on the studs, but that boot looks perfect still. And that's part of it. Yes, you can go buy a Nike or a Adidas Puma product for $300 to $400, and you should be able to get your season out of it. But if you spend that extra $200, you can have something like this with the best leather you've ever felt, insane comfort, and durability that's going to last. So that's part of it. Also, that philosophy that they have with refining a product. So this is a Neo Beta 3. The 4s are out now. And they're just fantastic. That's such a nice boot to play in. And you can tell they've just been tweaking and tweaking it to end up with one of the best boots on the market, with having a kangaroo leather forefoot, that synthetic midfoot with incredible lockdown, a really, really usable sole plate, aggressive but not overly aggressive, a lightweight product, a comfortable product, and again, the durability on these are fantastic. So yeah, I hope that sort of gives you a bit of an idea of why people like myself within sort of the collecting, reselling, football boot enthusiast world absolutely goes on about Mizuno and their products. So yeah, super impressive products, a really interesting brand. I wish their pricing was just a little bit more obtainable for people. But I guess with that said, if you're interested in a Mizuno product, do not be afraid to try the made in Vietnam products, because they are 90%, if not more, of what you're getting from the made in Japan. But it's that extra 10% that, you know, takes those made in Japan products to the next level. But if you just want to try and introduce yourself to a Mizuno product, the Neo 4s, you can get the betas or non-betas, you can get the alphas, the alpha 2s, you get all of them in the elite model, and they're fantastic. Like, I've got them myself, and they're fantastic. So if you're in the market for something, instead of going and just buying another Mercurial or, you know, the latest F50, go try something like this. And like, it's rare. I don't think I've met anyone, and I've probably put at least 10 of my friends and like teammates into Mizuno boots now, and none of them gone, I don't like them. Everyone's like, why did I not know about this sooner? But yeah, so that's sort of the video for today. I hope it gives you a bit of an understanding of why Mizuno is such an interesting, such a cool brand. And yeah, hopefully you learned something, I guess. And obviously I'm a bit of a fan. I've got my Mizuno Aurelia shirt on as well. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Again, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying, you know, these sort of videos. A bit of a long video, but I had a lot to cram in. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.